Hey everybody, my name's Ethan,
And this is also Ethan.
and today we're starting a new series called Is It Fair? Today we're covering Bow, but first let's find out what this series is all about. Hello and welcome to Is It Fair? This is a series where we take a look at legends and weapons and determine if they are fair. We do this by looking at each legend's signatures or each weapon's moves and ranking them on a scale of F to S. After we look at each, we will then determine if the weapon or legend is fair.
And just as a quick disclaimer, we are making this video series as unbiased as possible to keep it relevant to all Brawlhalla players and their own specific matches.
Alright, now that you've heard what Is It Fair is all about, let's talk about the bow. So, first of all, maybe it's best if I hold the weapon.
That would be ideal.
But we'll start off with the grounded light attacks. So, the neutral light, let's talk about it. I think this move is pretty great, it's really fabulous anti-air. You see that hitbox comes out pretty quick, and although it's a pretty thin hitbox, it hits pretty frequently.
Yeah, and it has very low recovery. So like when I talk about that, like you can basically move really quickly after you use it or attack again. And it also hits stacked, which not everyone knows, but also can come in handy occasionally in certain situations. However, there also are a few negatives with this move. It has no super reliable follow-ups, and it's also pretty vulnerable to certain other attacks from the air, as it only covers one side. And also, it's so like I said, it's pretty punishable. And then when all this comes together, it's not as good as it looks on paper because of its follow-up potential.
Right.
So Ethan, what is your rating for this move?
I rate this weapon or this move at a B minus.
Okay, I give it a B personally, so we're going to round that up to a B for this particular move.
Yep. And that's simply because, although it's a pretty good move, it doesn't fit the context of a string weapon like bow.
Yes, because it has the follow-up potential isn't the greatest for the rest of the kit we're going to be talking about shortly. Speaking of follow-up potential, side light.
Haha. This move is so classy. It's got a pretty good hitbox, It comes out quickly, it gives you movement, which makes it harder to punish, especially if you add momentum with a dash. Even a backdash is pretty nice. But that hitbox is pretty low, meaning if someone is even just a dash jump above you, they will probably get over it.
Very, very true. It also, as we talked about, has really good follow-up potential. Yeah, it's a really strong. It has like obviously the classic, the bread and butter is side light, D light, nair. That's not true. It doesn't have any true follow-ups, but it also has a decently large hitbox on the ground, and it's good for starting those strings. However, it is outranged by certain other larger weapons like lance, and it also is slower than a lot of other side lights. Like if we're talking about guitar side light, obviously it's quite slower than that. And it's also very punishable from the air as it does not have a very tall vertical hitbox.
That's right. So, Ethan, what do you give this move?
I'm going to give it an A.
Hey, me too. I think it's worth an A.
Yeah, I think overall it's a really solid move, but there are enough weaknesses. Like it doesn't do more things than a side light should that it's just going to be like A.
Precisely. And moving promptly onward to the down light. This move's pretty great. You want to start us off with that?
Sure, down light. This move has so many guaranteed follow-ups. It's crazy. I think there's just to name a few. It's downlight neutral light's true. Downlight chase dodge nair is true, and there's multiple more than that. But it basically has a lot of stun for those follow-ups. And even if they're not completely true, they're hit with low frames. But that does have a lot of true follow-ups.
Exactly.
It's also oh, go ahead.
Thank you. And you may notice that when grounded, this move has a pretty big splash hitbox, and it looks a little bigger than it is, but still, it makes a big difference. Even gravity canceling it, you get a pretty sizable hitbox, and it hits very favorably.
Yeah. Also, it has very good range, and it's hard to punish because of its movement, as you mentioned, Ethan. Okay, so it also has some negatives, though. There are a few. The biggest one being it's not a huge vertical hitbox. Like let's see, like Ethan's here and he jumps, like it's not going to hit. He can easily jump over it, even though it's quick. He can still jump over it. And then also, it does have a dead zone, if you're close enough. So
Yeah,
wait,
especially coupled with the movement, it makes it kind of hard to judge
yeah,
sometimes
yeah,
where your opponent's going to be.
yeah. See, there you go. There's the if you're about it doesn't hit stacked, which is the dead zone. So it does hit very close to you with that splash hitbox, but as soon as you get like within like right like stacked with the person, it does not hit any longer.
All right, I would
Okay.
give this move the downlight. I'd give it an A rating.
Oh, me too, dude. I'm also gonna give this one an A because I think it is a very solid move. I do not think it is quite reached S tier though, and it doesn't need any specific changes.
Agreed. Agreed.
Moving right up next to aerial moves. That's not bow. We're going to talk about Nair, except bow. There we go. Nair. Good old Nair.
Classic Nair.
It is a staple of the bow kit. And one big thing to notice about it is when you're using it. Oh! Didn't realize that you're that damaged there, Ethan. It hits, when you hit, it's a two-parter. Just like that. And it has obviously a follow-up into recovery there. It's a good get off me move. Like if it's someone stacked and you're just trying to get to the ground, it's easy to use, just like Ethan is doing to my character there. It's a very good in-air follow-up, and it's relatively fast for the type of move it is. You want to cover some of the negatives for us there, Ethan?
Yeah, the trouble with Nair is that its hitbox is so tight that often you'll just straight up miss the move. But because you're in the air, it's a little tougher to punish than some of our grounded moves are. Additionally, it can be really easily outranged by a lot of side airs and down airs on other kits, namely the next move that we're going to talk about in this weapon. But first of all, what's the ranking?
I gave it a B.
All right, not bad. I think it only deserves a C plus though, so that rounds up to a C minus or B minus.
Yes, B minus, because it is a good move, but I think its range and like speed takes away from it being an A move weapon or a move. Okay.
Yep.
Next, as you mentioned, the next move we're going to talk about, Sair. What is special about Sair, Ethan?
This move is pretty special because of its insane priority. I mean, it's not really insane, but the priority is good enough that it'll hit in almost all cases where your opponent is in that hitbox.
Yeah, very good priority. It can stuff a lot of moves coming towards it, which makes it a really good offstage kill option. Not necessarily for force, although later damage it does have quite a bit of force, as is a lot of variable force. But it can really stuff those recoveries and jumps pretty easily, and it's pretty quick to use.
And it being so quick to use makes it an excellent follow-up to some of the moves we've mentioned earlier.
Yes. And with it, the thing is also it is fast, but there's so many moves that are much faster than it. So you could say one of the weaknesses is its speed, because it's very quick. Don't get me wrong, but like Katara Dare specifically would be much faster in this move. And also, it doesn't have a huge amount of range on it. It's a decently small hitbox. So Ethan, what is your rating for this move?
I give Sarah a solid B.
A B, all right. I am also going to give it a B just because of its range. Even though it's so much priority, its range is pretty low, and the speed. I think some other Sairs can outshine it, which is ultimately what we're ranking these moves off of, is relative to other weapons. So,
alrighty. And lastly, in the light aerial kit, we've got down air. And boy, Bo does have a down air.
Yeah, it does. Arguably one of the best in the game. Well, not even arguably one of the best in the game. I think it arguably the best, next to maybe Spear. I think it probably has the best dare in the game. Although Hammers is extremely strong too, but it is up there. And Ethan, why is it up so high on the list?
Well, there's quite a few reasons, but just to start it off, holy moly, this thing has a lot of force at later damages. You can see, even as he's just barely getting into red, this is such a strong gimping edge guarding tool. Especially,
like, for example,
also, go ahead.
For example, Ethan, just to show what you said there, your edge guard tool. Like, you didn't even have to hit the second one.
He's just gone.
It's that good. You can peek over the ledge, and it's very unpunishable in that sense. It's so quick. What are you going to say, Ethan? What are you going to follow up on?
Well, it's also a great edge guard tool just because it's so fast.
Yes, exactly. It's so fast. And yeah, so basically, it also has a splash hitbox on the ground, which can. So not only is it a good edge guard tool, but let's say you wanted to mix up like your sidelight, you could go chase dodge. If I can hit it, you can do chase dodge diagonally and then dare, which also works well if you hit them off stage. Um, and Ethan, what are this move's negatives? It must have some negatives, right?
It doesn't.
Yeah.
At
It,
least we couldn't think of any negatives. So if you've got any, please be sure to let us know. But we just couldn't find any because this move outshines virtually every other down air in this game. So
yeah,
for that, we give it the S rating.
yeah. We both gave it the S rating. This move is insane. The only thing I could think of people saying it maybe it's not as good as we're saying is that like it looks like it has a small hitbox. But Iggsoup recently talked about this in one of his like just when he was like playing. Is that like Isaiah gun neutral sig and all of that? Like they have a small hitbox, but because the character's hurt boxes are big enough, it actually ends up being a large hitbox. Because it goes through a vast amount of hurt box. You see what I mean?
Exactly, yeah. It doesn't take a lot of movement or positioning for a circular hitbox to be inside that tiny little line. So
Yeah.
that's why these moves, including end light and down light and down air, are all really good in the bow kit.
Moving on to recovery.
Yep.
So positives here. One thing that anyone who plays against bow will know is that it has an absurd amount of priority. I definitely not to the broken extent, but like catching over the ledge, like how many times do you clash with bow recovery? I have not clashed personally with that move too many times because
Very infrequent,
very infrequent. It has a lot of priority. It's very solid. It has a decent amount of force, but it also doesn't have the most amount of force. And it has lots of movement, and it has a long hitbox. And by that I mean there's like the hitbox stays up for a long time, as you can see with Ethan using there. It travels a distance and has a big hitbox there.
And also, this move hits pretty close to stacked. Like, the hitbox almost entirely shields you from any incoming attacks. So, it's a very safe move, and it clips over the corner of the stage, which is very, very nifty.
Yes, and just like you said. And so, Ethan, what do you give this move its rating? What is its rating, in your opinion?
I think it deserves a pretty good A minus.
I I almost agree with you. I think it deserves a B plus. I think it's really solid for recovery. It could be slightly better. I think, like, not that it needs a buff. I'm just saying, like, there are recoveries that are better than it out there for sure. So
Yeah.
overall, an A minus for this move.
Alrighty, we have just about 1 minute to cover the ground pound, so let's get this done. This move is very, very strong. It has a very forgiving activation hitbox, which means it'll activate as soon as an enemy or another player enters that hitbox, meaning you don't really have to let go to predict when they'll be hit.
Yeah, it's like some activate like scythes, for example. It can be out prior, like you ground like recovery could go into scythe ground pound and be fast enough to get through the activation hitbox. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but on this move, it just has so much downward priority, and the biggest plus for this one of the biggest pluses comes out quick and has a ton of force. Like this move gimps like an insane amount of times. Like if it doesn't kill you, it's probably going to at least after recovery or jump. It's very hard to prioritize. And then when you hit someone, it also stops you from moving downward. So if you hit it off stage, you can chase odds back up and you're very safe. And we could only think of one negative for this move, and that was it travels slowly over a long distance. But overall, Ethan, what is your rating for that move?
Actually, I think ground pound deserves a pretty solid A plus.
You know what? I think I'd say A plus too. I don't. After thinking about it, like it doesn't quite reach S, just because it isn't the fastest ever. If it was like hammers, if it was faster, like if it was guitar speed or anything, it would be insanely broken. But it does have a decent amount of slowness to it. So
Right. And if you've played against bow players for a decent amount of time, you'll know it's pretty predictable when you know that they're going to come out with a ground pound.
Agreed. I very much agreed. Okay, well that covers the bow kit for it. Ethan, is bow fair?
I think bow's pretty fair. It's a very strong string weapon, but its stronger moves, if they were reined in a little bit more, would make it more fair. I just don't think that it's quite at the scope of unfairness.
Yeah, I think though it has some super solid moves like Dare, which is on the edge of like being like one of the best moves in the game. Um, but also like it has enough moves that aren't like insanely good that it balances the kit out to bring it down to like I think a balanced standard, so being fair. Um, so yeah, that's our rating for Bow. Hope you guys enjoyed.
Yep, there you have it. We'll see you guys in the next video.
Peace.